To set up for your cook, the first thing you want to do is top off your charcoal, which we've already done. We also want to check this gasket here. We want to make sure it's fluffed up, it's not too flattened, and that it's going to create a good seal, because this seal here is very important to how the smoker operates. After I've loaded the charcoal, I want to open up the fire door here, latch it open, take my ash pan tool, and really give my fire grate a good shimmy. What I'm doing there is trying to knock loose any ash from snuffing my last fire so that the system breathes freely. Then I can take the ash removal tool and empty this out one last time before I cook. An important part of your setup is to make sure that the pit probe, sensing the temperature of the pit, doesn't end up too close to your food. So you want to keep it at least a few inches away from a big cold piece of meat, because you don't want to get fast readings. I want it to be nicely placed. I could put food all over here on any of the shelves. We just want to make sure we're not too close to the probe. And we don't want to put any food on the wires themselves. To turn the pit computer on, you see the little power symbol here, pointing to these two buttons. You hold them in at the same time. Right now it's showing that the temperature inside the pit is 69 degrees, which is not a surprise. We're at room temperature here and we haven't started our fire. To adjust the pit temperature, you're going to press the pit button and then the up or down arrow. I like to work at 225 most of the time, especially for pork, but you can adjust the temperature range there. It'll revert back to showing you the temperature, and what you're seeing right now is what's referred to as the warble on the display. That flashing light and pulsing numbers means that the fan is blowing, and the fan is going to be blowing basically at 100% right now because we're so far from the desired temperature. That's how it stokes the fire. The pit computer measures the temperature inside the pit 3 times every second, and it adjusts the intensity of the blower in 10% increments from 0 to 100% to stoke the fire and to maintain your target temperature. The one thing the pit computer can't do is cool off your fire. So while during preheat we want to have the fan shutter all the way open, 100% open, once we're up to temperature, especially if I'm working at 225, I recommend closing that shutter halfway. What we want is for the fire not to get enough air without the blower blowing, so that the computer is in control, so that it needs the blower to maintain the temperature you desire. When I'm using the smoker cabinet, I like to keep the door open. For one, it allows me to easily see the temperature and whether or not my fan is blowing, but we also don't want to risk building up too much heat in here and overheating your computer. If you've got children or pets around, I would suggest that you keep the door closed. The pit computer comes with this countertop stand. You can place it on the countertop, and instead of mounting the computer here, we'll mount it up there so that we can keep the door closed and keep everybody away from the hot parts of the smoker. We cover 3 different methods for lighting your smoker in the owner's manual. I'm going to show you my preferred method today. Once I've got the ball valve open, the fan shutter open, the chimney open, and the pit computer fired up, I'm going to use this gas torch. I'm going to point it at the charcoal, and I'm going to hold it on the right side for 45 seconds so I get some good glow. And then I'm going to repeat that on the left side. You want to make sure that you're using the tip of the flame, which is going to be the hotter part of the flame, as opposed to being too close in like this. So it only takes a minute to a minute and a half to get this going, and you can see the charcoal glow. Now that I'm done with the torch, I'm going to close the fire door, and I'm going to leave the charcoal chute door open, but only for 5 minutes. That's going to help jumpstart the fire by giving it a chimney effect, but I always set a timer on my phone to remind me to close the door. It's very important that after 5 minutes we seal this up. Otherwise, the fire can migrate up the chimney, and we definitely don't want that to happen. You can see we're up to 225 degrees. I do recommend preheating the pit for a full hour. It should be up to temperature well within that time, unless it's really cold outside, but I recommend preheating for a full hour because we want to embed that heat fully into the stainless steel body and the shelves and all that, not just be reacting to the air temperature. Once we're ready to start cooking, and before I put the food in the pit, I want to add a wood chunk. This is completely optional, but wood will add more flavor to your cook. So you're going to open the fire door here and pull out the pan carefully using the tool. And we're going to place the wood chunk in the pan, put it back in, and we can close the door. Occasionally, you will find black smoke coming from your wood chunk. That is not the desirable flavor or color that you want for your smoke. That can happen if the embers falling onto the wood are too intense. It's going to burst into flames, and you can get that sort of sooty smoke. A tip I'd like to share with you to avoid that, if it's happening to you, is to wrap your wood chunk in foil, aluminum foil, nice heavy duty stuff, and poke a few holes with a fork before you put it into the ash pan. That still allows the wood to smolder and produce smoke, but it doesn't give it enough air that it can really combust and produce that black smoke. So that's a good tip to keep in mind if you're having trouble with that. Another tip I'd like to share with you is if you're concerned with drippings coming from your shelf, when you're adding food or removing it from the smoker and pulling out these shelves, is you can put a couple of half sheet pans on the ground to catch the drippings or the spices that are going to fall off. You definitely want to avoid the temptation of opening your smoker door more than necessary, but when it is time to remove the food, this can help make cleanup a lot easier. Once we do that, we're actually going to snuff the charcoal fire, and all the charcoal that's left in that column will be ready and waiting for me for the next cook. So it's very efficient. You don't have to go through a whole chimney of charcoal every time you're cooking. We hope you'll find this information helpful when starting your next cook. If you're interested in learning more about the setup process or the anatomy of the smoker cabinet, click on the videos listed on your screen.